Before we begin this story, I need you to do something for me. If you've ever felt trapped by someone who made you believe you were never enough, hit that like button. If you know what it's like to have your reality constantly questioned by the very people who should protect you, leave a comment below, even just a heart emoji to let others know they're not alone. And if this story moves you, please share it. Someone in your life might desperately need to hear that escape is possible. Now, let me tell you about the day I discovered my worth was never determined by my narcissistic aunt's approval. The Mesa sun blazed overhead as I stood in the parking lot of the Maricopa County Superior Court's Southeast facility, my hands trembling as I gripped the folder containing 9 years of meticulously documented abuse. My name is Carter, and at 29 years old, I was about to wage war against the woman who had terrorized my family for nearly a decade, my Aunt Patricia. A narcissistic family structure will often be full of deceit, emotional abuse, and multiple forms of narcissistic manipulation. These dynamics are extremely dysfunctional and harmful for any family members involved, no matter their position or role in the family system. That perfectly described our family, with Aunt Patricia as the malignant core of our dysfunction. I wasn't always the person standing confidently in that courthouse parking lot. For most of my life, I was what therapists call a people pleaser, someone so desperate for approval that I'd set myself on fire to keep others warm. People pleasers may struggle with self-advocacy, which can lead to harmful patterns of self-neglect and self-sabotage. That was me, perfectly. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where it all began, to 2016, when Aunt Patricia moved to Mesa after her third divorce. She arrived at our doorstep with 2 suitcases and a sob story about being victimized by yet another narcissistic ex-husband. The irony wasn't lost on me years later. My parents, Robert and Linda, were decent people plagued by one fatal flaw: they couldn't say no to family. When Patricia called crying about having nowhere to go, they immediately offered her our guest house. It was supposed to be temporary, just a few months while she got back on her feet. Those few months stretched into 9 years of hell. Patricia was a master of what I now know is called covert narcissism. Unlike the grandiose narcissists you see in movies, she played the victim while secretly orchestrating chaos. Covert narcissists are especially adept at delivering this layer of punishment and control. When confronted with their bad behavior, they dish out guilt and place themselves back in control by jumping into the victim role. We have to move beyond this shame in order to find our freedom. Every family gathering became a minefield. Thanksgiving 2016, she had a mysterious allergic reaction to my mother's turkey, forcing us to rush her to Banner Desert Medical Center while our dinner went cold. Christmas 2016, she sobbed through dinner about how we'd seated her at the reject end of the table. She was sitting next to my father. My birthday in 2017, she showed up 3 hours late, drunk, and announced to everyone that I'd always been the weird one in the family who would probably die alone. But these were just the previews of her true nature. Narcissistic homes often have unspoken rules of engagement that dictate interactions among family members. Some of these rules may include submitting to the dominant narcissist's authority and taking sides. In these families, rage is often normalized and denial may be rampant. Patricia established these rules quickly. If you disagreed with her, you were attacking her. If you didn't drop everything to attend to her needs, you were abandoning her. If you succeeded at anything, you were rubbing it in her face. I remember the exact moment I realized we were dealing with something pathological. It was Easter 2017, and my cousin Emma had just announced her engagement. Instead of congratulating her, Patricia stood up at the dinner table and proclaimed, "Well, I suppose some of us are lucky enough to find men who aren't complete psychopaths." She then launched into a 20-minute monologue about her failed marriages, turning Emma's moment into the Patricia show. My mother tried to redirect the conversation back to Emma, and Patricia's mask slipped. Her face contorted into something I'd never seen before, pure rage. "Oh, I'm sorry," she screamed, "I didn't realize my pain was inconvenient for you people." She stormed out, but not before accidentally knocking over my grandmother's china cabinet, shattering pieces that had been in our family for 3 generations. When my father confronted her later, she claimed she'd had a blood sugar episode and couldn't remember anything. That was her pattern: create chaos, deny responsibility, play victim, demand sympathy, and punish anyone who didn't comply. Narcissists tend to manipulate and control others within the family to maintain their desired image or position of power. This can include emotional manipulation, guilt-tripping, coercing, and playing family members against each other. Lack of empathy. There's a general lack of consideration for the emotions and needs of others, not just from the narcissist, but from others in the family. By 2018, our family was unrecognizable. My parents aged 10 years and 2. My younger sister, Sarah, developed an eating disorder. My brother, Marcus, stopped coming to family events altogether. And me? I became Patricia's favorite target, the family scapegoat. In a narcissistic family, the scapegoat is typically the family member who is blamed for everything that goes wrong within the family. Usually assigned to the least favorite child of the family, the scapegoat is often the target of constant criticism, emotional abuse, and unreasonable expectations. This role serves to divert the narcissist's own issues, creating a convenient scapegoat they can project their negative emotions and shortcomings. Why me? Because I was the one who occasionally pushed back. When she'd lie about something I'd supposedly done, I'd defend myself. When she'd twist my words, I'd try to clarify. This made me, in her words, difficult, oversensitive, and probably mentally ill. The gaslighting was relentless. She'd move my things and deny it. She'd tell different family members contradictory stories about me, creating conflict and confusion. She once told my mother I'd called her a pathetic old hag. I hadn't even spoken to her that week, then told my father I was spreading rumors about their marriage. But the worst part? Everyone else started buying into it. Members of my family have successfully, as narcissistic families always do in these situations, band together and tell the world that the scapegoat is mentally ill, or some other such issues. They are the reason for all the ills in the family's world. By 2019, I was completely isolated within my own family. If something went wrong, it was somehow my fault. If Patricia was upset, I must have triggered her. If there was conflict, I was surely at the center of it. My parents, exhausted from Patricia's constant drama, found it easier to blame me than confront her. I started documenting everything in a journal: dates, times, exact quotes, witnesses. At first, it was just to preserve my sanity, to prove to myself that I wasn't crazy. I had no idea this journal would later become evidence worth millions. The breaking point came during what should have been a celebration. In 2020, despite the pandemic, I'd managed to complete my certification as a life coach specializing in narcissistic abuse recovery. I'd done it entirely in secret, knowing Patricia would find a way to sabotage it if she knew. But I was proud and wanted to share this achievement with my family. Big mistake. What my family didn't know, what even I didn't fully understand at the time, was that my certification in narcissistic abuse recovery was just the tip of the iceberg. For 3 years, I'd been building something in secret, something that would eventually be valued at $3.2 million. It started with a blog. After particularly brutal encounters with Patricia, I'd write anonymous posts about surviving narcissistic abuse. I called it the Scapegoat Sanctuary. I never used real names or identifying details, just shared coping strategies and validation for others going through similar experiences. The blog exploded. Within 6 months, I had 50,000 subscribers. Within a year, 200,000. By 2020, the Scapegoat Sanctuary had over 500,000 email subscribers and was generating significant ad revenue. I'd also launched online courses, written 3 ebooks under a pseudonym, and started a private coaching practice all focused on recovering from narcissistic abuse. Am I getting this self-advocacy thing all wrong? But I can assure you that you're not alone. After coaching hundreds of recovering people-pleasers, I've noticed 5 common, but little-known, bumps in the road that come up again and again in folks' recovery. I was living proof that recovery was possible, even while still trapped in the abuse. I operated everything under an LLC registered in Delaware, keeping my identity completely anonymous. The business accounts were separate from my personal finances. To my family, I was still just Carter, the problematic one working a mediocre marketing job from home. They had no idea I was building an empire teaching others how to escape situations exactly like mine. The irony was delicious. While Patricia was calling me a failure and disappointment at family dinners, I was literally writing best-selling guides on surviving people exactly like her. While she was gaslighting me, I was teaching thousands of others how to recognize and document gaslighting. While she was playing victim, I was showing real victims how to reclaim their power. But maintaining this double life was exhausting. I'd work my regular job from 9 to 5, endure whatever Patricia's latest drama was in the evenings, then stay up until 3 a.m. working on my real business. I installed multiple locks on my home office door after catching Patricia trying to snoop through my computer. I used a VPN, encrypted everything, and even had a separate phone for my business dealings. The closest call came in late 2020. Patricia had noticed I seemed different, more confident, less reactive to her provocations. She became obsessed with figuring out what had changed. She started following me, showing up at random times, even hiring a private investigator. She'd inherited money from her second divorce and had nothing better to spend it on. One day, she confronted me, "You're hiding something." "I know it. You think you're so smart, but I always find out the truth." I gray rocked her, a technique I taught my clients where you become as boring and unresponsive as a gray rock. "I don't know what you're talking about, Aunt Patricia. I'm just trying to live my life." She sneered. "You're nothing. You'll always be nothing. And when everyone finally sees what a fraud you are, I'll be there to say I told them so." If only she knew that conversation would later be featured in my fourth book, When Narcissists Project, Understanding the Psychology of Accusation. By early 2021, my business had grown beyond what I could handle alone. I needed to hire help, but how could I without revealing my identity? That's when I met Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a psychologist who'd been following my blog. She reached out, saying she wanted to collaborate. After months of careful vetting, I revealed my identity to her and brought her on as a partner. Together, we expanded the business. We created an app for abuse survivors, launched a podcast that hit #1 in the mental health category, and developed a certification program for other coaches. The valuation kept climbing, $500,000, then $1 million, then $2 million. All while Patricia continued her reign of terror. 2021 was particularly brutal. Patricia had started dating someone new, a man named Derek who was, surprise surprise, also a narcissist. Together, they were like a hurricane of dysfunction. They'd show up drunk to family events, start fights, break things, then blame everyone else for provoking them. My sister Sarah's wedding in August 2021 was a disaster. Patricia wore a white dress, claiming she forgot it was inappropriate, gave a speech about how marriage was a scam during the reception, and then accused the groom's family of stealing her purse. She'd left it in the bathroom. The photos from that day show my family's exhaustion, hollow eyes, forced smiles, the look of people held hostage by chaos. But something else happened at that wedding that changed everything. My cousin Emma, the one whose engagement Patricia had ruined, pulled me aside. "Carter," she whispered, "I know what you're doing. I found your blog. It saved my life." My blood ran cold. If Emma knew, who else might figure it out? She continued, "Don't worry, I haven't told anyone. But I wanted you to know, what you're doing matters. And I think it's time you stopped hiding. We need someone to stand up to her." That conversation planted a seed. What if I didn't have to hide anymore? What if my secret power could become my actual power? I started planning. If I was going to reveal myself and confront Patricia, I needed to be strategic. I consulted with lawyers about protecting my business. I documented every single interaction with Patricia: videos, audio recordings. Arizona is a one-party consent state, screenshots of texts, witness statements. I built a case that would be bulletproof. The recovering people pleaser has to put their recovery and themselves first, and they have to try to do this on a daily basis. This is why Therapy Plus attending Codependency Anonymous meetings can provide a space where we can not only explore the deep-seated reasons behind us becoming people pleasers, but we can also share our stories and struggles with other people in our position. By early 2022, my business was valued at $2.8 million. I had a team of 15 employees, all remote, all thinking their CEO was someone named Alex Morgan. We were helping thousands of abuse survivors every month. And I was still pretending to be the family failure. The cognitive dissonance was crushing. I'd spend my days empowering others to stand up to their abusers while allowing my own abuser to run roughshod over my life. I was teaching boundaries while having none. I was preaching self-worth while accepting treatment that said I was worthless. But I was also gathering strength. Every success story from my clients reminded me that freedom was possible. Every thank you email reinforced that I had value. Every milestone in my business proved Patricia wrong. The final piece fell into place in March 2022. A major media company reached out wanting to buy the Scapegoat Sanctuary for $3.2 million. They wanted to turn it into a full media platform, books, documentaries, a potential TV series. The only catch? I'd have to reveal my identity. The CEO was the face of the brand, and they needed that face to be public. I had a choice: take the deal and blow up my entire life, or stay hidden and safe but imprisoned. I thought about Emma's words. I thought about my sister's eating disorder. I thought about my parents' premature aging. I thought about all the family events Patricia had ruined, all the relationships she'd destroyed, all the pain she'd caused. I thought about the thousands of people my platform had helped, and the millions more it could help if I had the resources this deal would provide. And I thought about Patricia's sneer: "You're nothing. You'll always be nothing." I made my decision. April 15, 2022. That date is burned into my memory like a brand. It was my grandmother's 85th birthday celebration, held at the Sheraton Grand at Wild Horse Pass in Chandler, just outside Mesa. My parents had spent months planning it, inviting family from across the country. It was supposed to be perfect. Patricia made sure it was perfectly catastrophic. She arrived 2 hours late, stumbling drunk with Derek in tow. But that wasn't the worst part. She'd somehow gotten access to the slideshow of my grandmother's life photos and had inserted pictures of herself throughout, badly photoshopped images making it look like she'd been present for moments she hadn't even been alive for. When my uncle pointed out the obvious fakery, Patricia exploded. "You're all jealous," she screamed. "You can't stand that Mom loves me best. That I'm the favorite." My grandmother, dignified even in her confusion, simply said, "Patricia, dear, I'm not your mother. I'm your sister-in-law." The look of rage that crossed Patricia's face was terrifying. She grabbed the microphone from the DJ and began a tirade that I can only describe as verbal napalm. She accused my grandmother of playing favorites, my parents of elder abuse, my siblings of theft, and me, of course, it always came back to me, of masterminding some conspiracy against her. "Carter is sick," she screamed into the microphone. "Mentally ill. They've been manipulating all of you. They're the reason this family is falling apart. They're probably recording this right now for their sick games." She was right about one thing: I was recording. But not for sick games. For evidence. The meltdown continued for 20 minutes. Hotel security was called. Several family members left in tears. My grandmother had to be taken to a quiet room because her blood pressure spiked dangerously. And through it all, Patricia painted herself as the victim of a family conspiracy. But then she crossed a line that changed everything. "You want to know the truth about Carter?" she announced to the room. "They're a fraud. Pretending to work from home when really they're just a lazy parasite living off their parents. I've seen their bank statements, they have nothing. They're almost 30 and have less than $1,000 to their name." She was lying about seeing my bank statements, but the accusation hit different this time. Because I knew the truth. I had $3.2 million waiting in escrow. I had helped thousands of people. I had built something from nothing while she had destroyed everything she touched. Derek decided to pile on. "Patricia's right. We've been watching Carter. They're up to something. Probably selling drugs or doing porn. No legitimate person is that secretive." My father, who had been silent for years, finally spoke up. "That's enough, Patricia. Get out." She laughed. "Or what, Robert? You'll throw out your own sister? The woman you promised your mother you'd take care of? Go ahead. Show everyone what kind of family this really is." My father looked defeated. My mother was crying. Sarah was having a panic attack. Marcus had already left. And my grandmother, the woman we were supposed to be celebrating, was being attended to by paramedics. That's when I stood up. "You're right, Aunt Patricia," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "I have been hiding something." The room went silent. Patricia's eyes gleamed with triumph. "I've been hiding the fact that I've spent the last 3 years building a business that helps people recover from narcissistic abuse. I've been hiding the fact that I'm about to sell that business for $3.2 million. And I've been hiding the fact that every single thing you've done to this family for the past 9 years has been documented, recorded, and prepared for legal action." The silence was deafening. Patricia laughed, but it was nervous now. "You're lying. You're delusional. This is exactly the kind of grandiose fantasy I'd expect from someone with your mental problems." I pulled out my phone and showed an email from the acquiring company's CEO. The subject line read, "Congratulations on the acquisition, next steps for the Scapegoat Sanctuary." The scapegoat sanctuary, my cousin Emma said, loud enough for everyone to hear. That's the blog that saved my life after years of abuse. Carter, you're Alex Morgan? Patricia's face went white. Then red. Then purple. You lying little dash, she lunged at me, but Derek held her back. It's all lies, she screamed. Fake. They're making it up. This is defamation. Slander. I'll sue. I'll destroy you. I remained calm. Cultivate mental and physical self-awareness. Since people-pleasers are so focused on others' well-being, it's important you turn that lens inward. Check in with yourself throughout the day to monitor your emotional, physical, and relational needs. Notice when you go into a fawning nervous system response and practice coming into your body with breathing and moving that can center, ground, and reorient you, all ways to help you practice self-agency. This allows a shift from a reactive mind to a rational mind, helping you recognize and implement your needs in the moment. Go ahead, I said. Sue me. Discovery will be very interesting. 9 years of documentation. Recordings. Videos. Witness statements. Financial records showing the money you've stolen from mom and dad. The fraudulent insurance claims. The false police reports you filed against me. It's all here. I held up the folder I'd been carrying. Patricia's mask didn't just slip, it shattered completely. What followed was the extinction burst to end all extinction bursts. She destroyed the birthday cake. She threw chairs. She attacked Derek when he tried to calm her down. She screamed threats that had hotel security calling the police. And through it all, I stood there recording, finally feeling the power I'd been teaching others to find. When the Mesa police arrived, Patricia tried to claim I'd assaulted her. Unfortunately for her, there were 126 witnesses and multiple cell phone videos showing the truth. She was arrested for disorderly conduct, criminal damage, and assault. She'd scratched Derek badly enough to draw blood. As they led her away in handcuffs, she screamed, "This isn't over, Carter. I'll ruin you. I'll tell everyone what you really are." "Please do," I called back. "It'll be great marketing for my next book." The next morning, while Patricia was being released on bail, I sat in the office of Richardson and Associates, a law firm on South Stapley Drive in Mesa. Across from me was James Richardson, a veteran attorney who specialized in family law and cyber harassment cases. "So let me understand this," James said, reviewing my documentation. "You have 9 years of recorded abuse, financial fraud, defamation, and intentional infliction of emotional distress?" "Every incident," I confirmed, sliding over 3 binders of evidence. Times, dates, witnesses, recordings were legally permissible. I also have evidence of her stealing approximately $47,000 from my parents over the years, forged checks, unauthorized credit card use, sold family heirlooms and kept the money. James whistled low. "This is one of the most comprehensive cases I've seen. But I have to ask, why now? Why not years ago?" "I wasn't strong enough years ago," I admitted. "I needed to build my own foundation first. I needed to prove to myself that her voice in my head, the one telling me I was worthless, was wrong. And frankly, I needed the resources to fight her properly." We spent the next 4 hours strategizing. The plan was multi-pronged. 1. Civil lawsuit for intentional infliction of emotional distress, defamation, and harassment. 2. Criminal charges for fraud, theft, and cyberstalking. She'd created fake social media accounts to harass me and my business. 3. Restraining order to keep her away from me and my family. 4. Public exposure through my platform, not for revenge, but to warn others and validate other victims. "There's one more thing," James said. "Given the public nature of your business and her threats, we should consider a defamation suit. If she tries to damage your professional reputation, we'll be ready." I nodded. "She already started. Look at this." I showed him screenshots from the previous night. Patricia had created a website called The Truth About Carter filled with lies about me being a con artist, mentally ill, and dangerous. She'd posted on every social media platform, tagged my business accounts, and even sent emails to my clients. She'd somehow gotten access to an old email list. "Perfect," James smiled. "She's giving us everything we need." But legal action was only part of my plan. The real revenge would be living my truth openly and successfully, something Patricia couldn't stand. I scheduled a meeting with the acquiring company's CEO, Rebecca Martinez. We met at the Phoenician resort, and I laid everything out for her. I understand if this changes things, I said after explaining the situation. My family drama might not be what you want associated with your company. Rebecca leaned back, considering. Actually, this makes you more valuable, not less. You're not just teaching theory, you're living it. You're showing your audience that recovery and success are possible even in the midst of ongoing abuse. That's powerful. She paused. But we'll need to control the narrative. I suggest we fast-track the announcement, get ahead of whatever your aunt is planning. We agreed to announce the acquisition in a week, along with my true identity. Rebecca connected me with her PR team, and we crafted a strategy that would turn Patricia's attacks into an opportunity to raise awareness about narcissistic abuse. Meanwhile, Patricia was escalating. The day after her arrest, she showed up at my parents' house demanding they evict me. I hadn't lived there in 5 years, but facts never mattered to her. When they refused, she called Adult Protective Services claiming they were being held hostage by their mentally unstable child. The APS investigation was quickly dismissed, but it was the final straw for my parents. My father, mild-mannered Robert who hadn't raised his voice in 20 years, called Patricia and told her she had 30 days to vacate the guest house. Her response was to trash the place. She caused over $30,000 in damage, broken windows, holes in walls, destroyed plumbing. She also stole everything valuable she could carry, including my grandmother's jewelry that my mother had been storing. Each action she took just added to our legal case. It was like she couldn't help herself. The more consequences she faced, the more she lashed out, creating more consequences. Narcissistic family members will not take responsibility for their harmful behaviors, ever. When it comes to dealing with a narcissist or narcissistically driven systemic processes, it is critical that one is clear on the type of person and dynamics they are dealing with. Narcissism is an intractable condition. The narcissistic family members who behave abusively toward you, whether covertly or overtly, are not going to change. This means your family system dynamics also will not change. Narcissists do not have the ego strength to examine themselves honestly and admit when they are wrong. Dr. Walsh, my business partner, helped me prepare for the psychological warfare I knew was coming. She's going to extinction burst, she warned. When narcissists lose control, they often engage in a last-ditch effort to regain it. It will get worse before it gets better. She was right. Patricia hired her own lawyer, somehow convincing him I was the real abuser and she was the victim. She filed her own lawsuit claiming elder abuse against me for alienating my grandmother, defamation, and emotional distress. She demanded $5 million in damages. Her lawyer, presumably after reviewing the actual evidence, dropped her as a client within 2 weeks. She hired another lawyer. Then another. Each one eventually withdrew from representation. By the 4th lawyer, word had gotten around the Mesa legal community. Patricia was unofficially blacklisted. No reputable attorney would take her case. That's when she decided to represent herself. April 28, 2022. The announcement went live at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. The Scapegoat Sanctuary acquired for $3.2 million, founder reveals identity and mission to help millions escape narcissistic abuse. The press release told my story anonymized enough to avoid legal issues, but specific enough that anyone who knew my family would recognize the truth. Within hours, it was picked up by major news outlets. My inbox exploded with interview requests, speaking opportunities, and messages from survivors sharing their own stories. But the most interesting response came from an unexpected source, Patricia's ex-husband's. Tom, her first ex-husband, reached out through my website. I've been waiting 20 years for someone to expose her, he wrote. I have documentation of abuse, fraud, and worse. I'm willing to testify. Michael, ex-husband number 2, was even more direct. She destroyed my life, my credit, and my relationship with my kids. Whatever you need, I'm in. And Stephen, the third ex, sent a simple message, check your email. I just sent you everything my lawyer gathered during our divorce. She's done this before. Multiple times. The files Stephen sent were damning. Patricia had a pattern going back decades: infiltrate a family, create chaos, extract resources, destroy relationships, play victim, and move on to the next target. There were police reports, court documents, even a psychiatrist's evaluation that suggested she had narcissistic personality disorder with antisocial features. I forwarded everything to James, my lawyer. This changes things, he said. This establishes a pattern of behavior. We're not just dealing with a difficult family member, we're dealing with a serial predator. Patricia's response to the announcement was predictable. She created more websites, posted more videos, sent emails to everyone in my professional network. But this time I was ready. My PR team had prepared responses. My clients had been briefed. And most importantly, I had the truth on my side. The restraining order hearing was May 15, 2022. Patricia showed up representing herself, dressed like she was going to a funeral, probably thinking it would make her look sympathetic. She'd prepared a 47-page statement about how I was the real abuser, how I'd stolen her ideas for my business, how I was mentally ill and dangerous. Judge Harrison, a no-nonsense woman who'd clearly seen it all, let Patricia speak for exactly 5 minutes before cutting her off. Ms. Conway, the judge said, I've reviewed the evidence submitted by both parties. I've seen the videos, read the transcripts, and examined the documentation. I'm granting the permanent restraining order. You are to stay 500 feet away from the petitioner at all times. You are prohibited from contacting them directly or indirectly, including through third parties or social media. Patricia exploded. This is a conspiracy. You're all in on it. I demand a different judge. I demand dash. You demand nothing in my courtroom, Judge Harrison said coldly. One more outburst and you'll be held in contempt. The order is granted. Next case. As Patricia was escorted out, still ranting, she locked eyes with me. The hatred there was pure and poisonous. But for the first time in 9 years, I wasn't afraid. I had won the first battle. The civil lawsuit moved forward quickly. Patricia's self-representation was a disaster. She filed motions incorrectly, missed deadlines, and submitted evidence that actually supported my case. She tried to subpoena my business records, apparently not understanding that they would show my success, not the failure she claimed. The criminal case was even worse for her. The prosecutor, and Chen, was a bulldog who'd dealt with financial fraud cases for 15 years. When she saw the evidence of Patricia stealing from my parents, she added elder abuse charges to the fraud and theft charges. Your aunt is looking at serious prison time, and told me. The elder abuse alone carries a potential 5-year sentence. But the real revenge came from an unexpected place, social media. Someone I never found out who posted a video compilation of Patricia's greatest hits, her meltdowns, her lies being exposed in real time, her arrest at my grandmother's birthday. It went viral on TikTok, gaining 24 million views in 3 days. The hashtag #AuntPatriciaKarma started trending. My narcissistic parents told my spoiled brother he could take my house, part 4, #Reddit stories, #Reddit treadings, #storytime, #Minecraft Parker, #Reddit, #FYP, #viral. My narcissistic parents told my brother he could take my house, part 4. Discover the shocking continuation of the Reddit story where my brother tries to steal my house. Find out the latest updates on this family saga. The internet loves justice stories, and Patricia had given them a villain to hate. People started finding her old social media posts, years of lies, contradictions, and victim playing. Internet detectives uncovered her history of fraud in other states. Someone found court records from her divorces. The narrative Patricia had carefully constructed for decades crumbled in days. Her response was to double down. She created a YouTube channel called The Real Truth where she posted hours-long videos about how she was being persecuted. The comment sections were brutal. Even people who didn't know the full story could see through her manipulation. Meanwhile, my business exploded. The acquisition went through smoothly. My story resonated with millions who'd experienced similar abuse. Book deals, speaking engagements, and consultation requests poured in. I was invited to speak at conferences about recognizing and recovering from narcissistic abuse. Have your healthy boundaries turned into rigid walls? Are you more annoyed with others than ever before? Do you want to withdraw from your social life? You might be experiencing one of these 5 common but little-known phases of people-pleasing recovery. I shared honestly about my journey, including the difficult parts of recovery. The criminal trial began in September 2022. Patricia, still representing herself, turned it into a circus. She accused the judge of bias, the prosecutor of persecution, and me of perjury. She claimed the evidence was fabricated, the witnesses were lying, and the whole thing was a conspiracy orchestrated by me. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Patricia's sentencing was scheduled for October 2022. In the weeks leading up to it, she became increasingly unhinged. Despite the restraining order, she found ways to harass me through flying monkeys, people she'd convinced to do her bidding. Flying monkeys are friends of the narcissist sent to communicate with the child on their behalf, an allusion to L. Frank Baum's Wicked Witch of the West, who sends her minions as messengers. But each time someone contacted me on her behalf, I documented it and reported it to the police. 3 of her flying monkeys ended up with charges of their own for violating the restraining order. Derek, her boyfriend, finally saw the light and left her. He reached out to apologize. I was blinded by her manipulation. She convinced me you were evil. I see now that everything she accused you of was actually what she was doing. I'm sorry for my part in it. The financial devastation was swift. Legal fees ate through Patricia's savings, what she hadn't stolen from others. The civil lawsuit judgment came in, $1.2 million in damages to me, $300,000 to my parents. She had no way to pay it, but it meant any future assets or income could be garnished. Her reputation was destroyed. The viral videos had made her unemployable. Every background check would reveal her criminal record. Even the dating apps banned her after multiple people reported her profiles as fraudulent. But the most satisfying fallout came from our family. For the first time in 9 years, we had peace. Family dinners were enjoyable again. My sister's eating disorder improved once the constant chaos stopped. My brother started coming around again. My parents looked years younger within months. At my grandmother's 86th birthday, a quiet affair at my parents' house, she pulled me aside. "Thank you," she said simply, "for having the courage to do what needed to be done." Even extended family members who'd initially criticized me for airing family laundry came around. My Aunt Jennifer, my mom's sister, apologized. We all saw what was happening, but we were too afraid to rock the boat. You saved this family. Patricia's sentencing day arrived. October 13, 2022. Friday the 13th fitting. She appeared in court looking haggard. Jail hadn't been kind to her. Without her carefully maintained appearance and charm, she looked like what she was, a bitter, angry woman who'd spent her life destroying others. She'd prepared a statement, 23 pages of blame, denial, and self-pity. Judge Coleman let her read it all. She blamed me, my parents, her ex-husbands, society, mental illness, which she claimed to have developed because of my abuse, and even the judge himself. When she finished, Judge Coleman spoke. "Ms. Conway, in my 30 years on the bench, I've rarely seen someone so completely unable to take responsibility for their actions. You've shown no remorse, no insight, and no recognition of the harm you've caused. You've stolen from elderly family members, destroyed property, harassed and defamed your nephew, and continue to paint yourself as the victim. The pre-sentencing report indicates you're a high risk for reoffending. Multiple psychiatrists have evaluated you and concluded you have a severe personality disorder that you refuse to acknowledge or treat. Therefore, I'm sentencing you to the maximum, 5 years for elder abuse, 3 years for fraud, 2 years for theft, sentences to run concurrently. 5 years in state prison, followed by 5 years probation with no contact with the victims and mandatory psychological treatment." Patricia screamed. She cursed. She had to be physically removed from the courtroom. As I walked out of the courthouse, I felt something I hadn't experienced in 9 years, freedom. It's been 2 years since Patricia went to prison. 2 years of healing, growth, and incredible success. The business I built from pain has become a movement. The Scapegoat Sanctuary is now a multimedia platform reaching millions. We have a documentary in production, a book on the New York Times bestseller list, and a foundation that provides free resources to abuse survivors who can't afford help. I bought a house in Scottsdale, paid cash with my earnings. It has a pool, a home office with a view of Camelback Mountain, and most importantly, a state-of-the-art security system. The trauma doesn't disappear overnight. My family has healed in ways I never thought possible. My parents downsized to a condo in Tempe, finally free from the guest house that had been Patricia's lair. They travel now, something they'd never done before because Patricia always had a crisis that kept them home. Sarah graduated from therapy and is thriving. She got married last year in a beautiful ceremony where no one wore white except the bride, no one made scenes, and everyone actually celebrated the couple. She's pregnant now, and jokes that her child will never meet their crazy great-aunt Patricia. Marcus and I rebuilt our relationship. He apologized for disappearing when things got bad. "I wasn't strong enough to fight her like you did. I just ran." I understood. Flight is a valid response to abuse. Not everyone can fight. I continued my own therapy, working through the complex PTSD that comes from years of gaslighting and manipulation. You can use a feelings wheel to help identify emotions, practice guided meditations to learn to be still and sit with yourself, and journal in order to give yourself a space to express yourself freely. Therapy can also be a helpful tool in cultivating self-awareness, because it is a safe space where you can explore and express, a space that is solely for you. The work isn't easy. I still sometimes hear Patricia's voice in my head telling me I'm worthless. But now I have tools to combat it, and more importantly, I have evidence of my worth. Speaking of evidence, Patricia tried to appeal her conviction from prison. She represented herself again, filing a brief that was apparently so incoherent the appeals court dismissed it without a hearing. She's tried to sue me from prison 3 times. Each lawsuit has been thrown out as frivolous. She still sends letters to family members, trying to manipulate from behind bars. We don't read them anymore. They go straight to my lawyer, just in case we need more evidence for extending the restraining order when she gets out. Derek reached out again last year. He's in therapy now, working through how he got sucked into Patricia's web. She was so convincing, he told me. She made me believe everyone else was evil and she was the only good person. It's terrifying how someone can distort your reality like that. I invited him to share his story on my podcast. His episode, Dating a Narcissist, a Survivor's Story, became one of our most downloaded. The comments section was full of people sharing similar experiences, grateful to know they weren't alone. The extended family has completely shifted. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years reached out to reconnect. Family reunions actually happen now, and people actually want to attend. Last Thanksgiving, we had 30 people at my parents' house. There was laughter, genuine conversation, and not a single dramatic scene. My grandmother, now 88, told me recently, I spent years praying for peace in this family. I thought I'd die without seeing it. Thank you for giving me these last years of joy. But perhaps the most meaningful change has been in my relationship with myself. Instead of always putting the needs of others first, a recovering people-pleaser starts to learn how to put what they want first. This is challenging, particularly if you have spent long periods of your life making sure that you are secondary and that other people always come first. I learned to set boundaries without guilt. I learned to say no without explaining myself. I learned that my worth isn't determined by how much I sacrifice for others or how well I manage their emotions. The business continues to thrive. We've helped over 1 million people recognize and escape narcissistic abuse. We've trained thousands of therapists in trauma-informed care for abuse survivors. We've changed laws in 3 states to better protect victims of emotional abuse. I still get messages from Patricia's flying monkeys occasionally, people she's convinced from prison that she's innocent. I don't engage. I forward everything to law enforcement and my legal team. The restraining order extends to third-party contact, and several people have learned that the hard way. There's one message that stands out though. It came from Patricia's mother, my grandmother on my father's side who I'd never met. She was 91 and dying. Dear Carter. I failed my daughter. I saw the signs when she was young but didn't know what to do. I enabled her, excused her, protected her from consequences. I created the monster who hurt you. I'm sorry. You did what I should have done decades ago, you stood up to her. Thank you for stopping the cycle. With regret and gratitude. Eleanor Conway. She died 2 weeks later. Patricia wasn't allowed to attend the funeral. I've been asked if I forgive Patricia. The answer is complicated. Such an unreserved, complete and total acceptance of reality just as it is known as radical acceptance, and the idea, and act, of forgiveness may or may not factor into this, depending on your personal beliefs. I've accepted what happened. I processed the trauma. I've even found gratitude for how it shaped me into someone who could help millions of others. But forgiveness? That would require Patricia to acknowledge what she did, show genuine remorse, and change. None of that has happened or will happen. What I have done is release her hold on me. She's no longer the voice in my head determining my worth. She's no longer the chaos I organize my life around avoiding. She's simply a chapter in my story, an important one that taught me strength I didn't know I had, but still just a chapter. 6 months ago, I received an email through my website. The sender had clearly worked hard to disguise their identity, but I knew immediately who it was. Patricia had found someone on the outside to send messages for her. Dear Carter. You think you've won, but you've only shown the world what I always knew: you're manipulative, vindictive, and cruel. You destroyed our family. You turned everyone against me. You took everything from me. But I want you to know something: I made you. Every success you have is because of me. You built your empire on my back. Without me, you'd have no story, no business, no millions. I gave you purpose. I'll be out in 2 years. Less with good behavior. And when I am, I'll rebuild everything you took from me. I'll show everyone who you really are. This isn't over. You owe me everything. Patricia. I stared at that email for a long time. Once, it would have sent me into a spiral of self-doubt and fear. Would people believe her? Was she right that I owed my success to her? Was I the real villain in this story? But then I remembered something Dr. Walsh had told me: narcissists will always try to claim credit for your success and blame you for their failures. It's the only way they can maintain their false self-image. I forwarded the email to my lawyer and the prison authorities. Prisoners aren't supposed to have internet access, even through proxies. Then I wrote a blog post about it. To those whose abusers claim credit for their success, you owe them nothing. Your strength came from surviving them, not from them. Your success came despite them, not because of them. Your story is yours to tell, not theirs to own. Yes, trauma can catalyze growth. Yes, surviving abuse can make us stronger. But crediting our abusers for our success is like thanking a tornado for teaching us to rebuild. We rebuilt because we're builders. We survived because we're survivors. We thrived because we're thrivers. The narcissist in your life didn't make you strong, you were always strong. They just forced you to discover it. You owe them nothing. Not forgiveness, not gratitude, not credit, and certainly not silence. Your success is yours. Own it. The post went viral. Over 1 million shares. Thousands of comments from survivors sharing their own stories of abusers trying to claim credit for their success. And that's when I realized the ultimate truth: Patricia had given me something, but not what she thought. She'd given me the opportunity to discover my own power. She'd given me the chance to help millions of others discover theirs. She'd given me the most powerful story possible, not of victimhood, but of victory. But I didn't owe her gratitude for that. You don't thank the darkness for helping you appreciate the light. You simply turn on the light and keep moving forward. As I write this, Patricia has 18 months left on her sentence. My lawyers are already preparing for her release, extending restraining orders, monitoring systems, safety plans. But I'm not afraid anymore. Because I know something Patricia never learned and never will: true power doesn't come from controlling others or destroying lives. It comes from building something meaningful, helping others heal, and refusing to let someone else's darkness dim your light. My name is Carter. I'm 31 years old. I'm a multimillionaire. I'm a best-selling author. I'm a survivor. I'm a thriver. And I don't owe any of it to the ant who tried to destroy me. I owe it to the part of me that refused to be destroyed. If you're reading this and seeing your own story reflected in mine, I want you to know something: you're not crazy. You're not too sensitive. You're not the problem. See the very helpful to see the comments on the Reddit community for Raised by Narcissists at https://www.reddit.com/r/raised-by-narcissists. This community helped me a lot. Communities like this saved my life by showing me I wasn't alone. The path to freedom isn't easy. It requires documenting everything, setting boundaries that feel impossible, and often making the heartbreaking decision to protect yourself from people who should have protected you. But freedom is possible. Success is possible. Happiness is possible. You just have to be willing to fight for it, even when the person you're fighting is family. My business continues to grow. My family continues to heal. And Patricia continues to rage from behind bars, irrelevant and impotent. That's the thing about narcissists: they're so busy destroying everything around them that they never build anything that lasts. Their legacy is chaos and pain. But survivors? We build empires from ashes. We create beauty from broken pieces. We transform trauma into triumph. And that's the ultimate revenge: not destroying them, but building ourselves into everything they said we could never be. If you're still trapped, document everything. Build your resources. Find your support system. Plan your escape. If you've escaped but are still healing, be patient with yourself. Recovery isn't linear. Some days you'll feel invincible, others you'll hear their voice in your head telling you you're worthless. Both are part of the journey. If you're free and thriving, share your story. Someone needs to hear that survival is possible, that success after abuse is achievable, that they're not doomed to repeat the cycle. And to those who say we should just forgive and forget, who insist that family is everything, who claim we're too sensitive or holding grudges, I say this. You don't get to dictate how survivors survive. You don't get to determine what family means to those whose families were their first battleground. You don't get to minimize abuse you didn't endure. We survived. We escaped. We thrived. And we don't owe anyone, not our abusers, not their enablers, not society, anything except our own healing and happiness. Patricia will be released in 18 months. She'll likely try to reconnect, to restart the cycle, to reclaim her position as the family terrorist. She'll fail. Because we're not the same family she terrorized for 9 years. We're stronger, wiser, and united in our refusal to let her back in. And I'm not the same Carter who used to cower at her rage. I'm Carter who built an empire. Carter who exposed the truth. Carter who chose freedom over family dysfunction. Carter who helps millions of others do the same. The inheritance Patricia left me wasn't the one she intended. She thought she was leaving me broken, worthless, destroyed. Instead, she left me with the tools to recognize evil, the strength to fight it, and the story to help others escape it. That's an inheritance worth $3.2 million. Actually, it's priceless. If you or someone you know is experiencing narcissistic abuse, National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-7233. Reddit communities, r/raised by narcissists, r/narcissistic abuse. Books, The Narcissistic Family by Stephanie Donaldson Pressman. Online resources, Out of the FOG, Fear, Obligation, Guilt. Remember, you don't have to do this alone. Help is available. Freedom is possible. And sometimes, the best revenge really is a life well lived.